Yo, what's up, guys? Today I have something that I think you guys are going to find pretty interesting. I have here with me today Austin. He is the person, or he's the only person I know that has done a ton of crosstalk. And when I mean a ton, I really do mean a ton. How many hours of crosstalk have you done?
Over 400.
Over 400.
400, okay.
Exactly. So,
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So everyone, for those of you that aren't familiar, I'm sure most of you know of Dreaming Spanish. Dreaming Spanish always recommends that people do crosstalk. They say it's the most efficient way to learn a language. Just a background for those that don't know what crosstalk is. You speak your language, the person that you're talking to speaks their language, so you both get time or like practice listening to your target language.
Yeah, especially like comfortable listening, because you guys are talking like, usually it's friends, right? So it makes it a lot more kind of natural in a way. It's not like listening to a news reporter.
Exactly. And you can tailor it to the other person's level. In the beginning, you use like pictures, drawings, stuff like that. You keep the language very simple. And then over time, once you can kind of understand podcasts and stuff like that, you don't really need as many visuals. You can just do like Discord voice calls and stuff like that. But yeah, I figured it would be a great opportunity to get Austin's perspective on things. A lot of people are afraid to do a lot of crosstalk because most people track it as 1 hour of crosstalk is 1 hour of input, even though you're only really listening to, well, assuming you're speaking 50-50, right? 30 minutes English.
There's two big reasons. I'd say the first one is it's hard to encounter because people are scared to go on
that too.
Like Hello Talk, which means it's kind of hard to just get the ball rolling, because once you've got people, it's easy, right? And then the next one usually too is, I would say honestly, level, because starting is harder too.
Exactly.
If you're having to use drawings, it's kind of hard to encounter somebody that's willing to work with you.
Yeah.
You already have a level to where you can just kind of hang out, talk a little bit, makes it easy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, in my own case, I was definitely one of those guys that was like, well, if I do an hour of crosstalk, I'm only going to count 30 minutes.
Third reason, that's inefficiency. A lot of people think it's inefficient because technically, like you said, I think in a video before, is you felt like it was half as efficient because you're only listening half the time and you're speaking.
Exactly.
Yeah. And no, I didn't think that way.
Yeah, it's not like that. It's, I think why it's so efficient is because you're talking with somebody else, you're communicating, and you have to actively pay attention. Otherwise, you're just going to look rude, you know?
Yeah. Embarrassing too.
Yeah.
If they catch you not listening and they're like, yeah, so what'd you think? And you're like, what?
Exactly.
It can be extremely embarrassing at start.
Exactly. So
it's humble. It's good. It keeps you humble,
So yeah, we're here today to kind of clear up some things about crosstalk, give you guys a unique perspective, and hopefully inspire you guys to do more crosstalk. So today I've got a few pre-planned questions here for Austin, revolving around his journey and, like I said, his perspective doing so much crosstalk. So the first one that I have here is, why did you decide to start learning Spanish? Could you give us a little bit of background?
Okay. I'm not gonna lie, it's not like this deep, profound, like, oh, I felt a calling. It's more like, okay, one, it was bucket list, right? One, I felt like I wanted to learn at least another language before you die one day, right? It's like a big thing for me. I feel like it's an intelligent thing. It's very intelligent to learn something. And it's helpful here in the U.S. because in Dallas, living in Dallas right now, it's packed with people that speak Spanish. So it's just useful too, especially for your jobs. And then the next is I'm half Mexican. So like my mom's side speaks it like my grandparents. My mom doesn't.
Yeah.
We won't get into that. But my mom doesn't. My grandparents do. And I always felt like I was halfway in the culture because every time I'm at my grandparents' house, they're cooking food, right? You're eating it, they're talking, but you couldn't. There was always a barrier because if they were talking, sometimes you'd miss out on those things. And I had that wish in the back of my head. I'm like, man, I wish I understood it, right? And yeah, so those are the main reasons I'd say.
Okay, yeah, pretty common. I can relate to you totally with that. I'm half Mexican as well. I have Spanish-speaking family, and I remember every time my mom was in the car on the phone with her sister, with my grandma, it was just white noise at that point. I couldn't understand anything. Yeah. My grandma came to visit us a few times when I was young, and it was really hard to communicate.
The barrier is difficult, and it's honestly, it was annoying enough for me that I was like, I want to do something about it, right?
Awesome. And so how did you find out about Dreaming Spanish?
I'm not gonna lie, I got super lucky with this. Usually people are like, I did Duolingo for blank months or almost a year, and then I just did some looking and found it on YouTube or something. It was my first day looking for like anything in this degree. I was like, I went to Reddit, looked up a random post, and somebody was like giving like a top 20 list of stuff they use, like content.
Okay.
And I don't know why it stuck out to me, but it was like, you just learn by listening. And,
Exactly.
and it was top 3 on their list. So I was like, it's gotta work, right?
Yeah.
I decided to kind of just not even dip my toes. I like dove into it. I started high hours, and I'm here now, so I don't regret it.
Yeah, I think I found it the same way you did.
Literally, yeah.
It's really hard to remember because I probably found out about it 3 years ago at this point.
So long.
Yeah, and like I remember just reading the website, and because for those of you that don't know, again a little bit of context, Dreaming Spanish is a platform, YouTube channel where they have over 1,000 hours of content that follows like this kind of comprehensible input methodology, where the goal is just you understand the gist of what's going on, and over time your brain figures everything out. You don't need to study vocabulary, you don't need to study grammar. Our brains are really good at pattern recognition, and that's essentially what languages are, just patterns. And so that, yeah, like you,
Like a baby, basically.
yeah, and
Like
it was really appealing too, just like, oh, all I need to do is watch stuff. Yeah,
I don't have to study things. Yeah, that was like a dream to me. So, you know,
exactly.
followed it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of us out there, including you probably at some point, have tried learning a language the traditional way and have just completely failed, or that you didn't know exactly what was required to completely learn.
And even
Exactly.
when you start, it can be, because usually, like, I've tried starting Spanish before for like 2 weeks. It's nothing big, right? But like, I remember for my birthday, I was like, maybe I'll like ask for like a grammar book or like vocabulary just to get the ball rolling, because I had like, it's always been a dream, right? And then you get to it, and that first page, I just feel like you get to like Mount Everest, and you look up and you just see this giant path ahead of you, and you go, I don't think I can stick this through. You know, this is going to take years. Yeah, and so Dreaming Spanish was everything I needed, basically. Yes.
Yeah, and did you find the roadmap very helpful? Or?
Extremely.
Oh yeah, I loved that there was goals, like concrete hour goals.
And I don't know why, but I feel like at one point I stopped thinking of that as opinion on the roadmap, and it got so accurate with my actual level that I was like, I don't know how Pablo figured this out, but like, literally I know by the time I get to the next thing, I'm going to feel like that. I'm going to feel that exact way, and it was very accurate. So.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because I did want to ask you how well you felt like the Dreaming Spanish roadmap lined up with your own personal experience, because you've done a lot more crosstalk compared to everybody else. And a lot of people that have just like kind of watched content normally feel like it's more or less pretty accurate.
Yeah.
So it's nice to hear that you feel like you're completely like in step with everyone else.
Yeah. And I feel like at first, like I'd say the first 3 to 4 levels were very accurate in terms of like maybe even within a few days after I hit it, I started to be like, wow, that was very accurate. But even later in, when I started doing crosstalk more, I feel like I would hit that level before I actually hit that numbered level, in my hours. So it was more efficient, honestly, in my opinion.
Okay, so even more efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that you've...
Like basically averaged up. Like if they said by 600 you'll feel like this, I feel like at like 500 or 550 or something, I started feeling like that.
Okay, so always slightly ahead of the curves.
Yeah, I was a little ahead of the curve.
Gotcha. Okay. And then I wanted to ask as well, like just so everybody out there knows, about how many hours of input have you done?
Okay, so it's kind of hard to guess now because I'm not gonna lie, I got a little bit lazy when I hit 1,000. So if I was to say just a good guess, I guaranteed on my list that I've counted up is 1,100. But I would add maybe 30 more. So like 1,130.
Okay. Awesome. And then I wanted to ask as well, why did you decide to focus primarily on crosstalk, and about when did you decide, or when did you make that decision? Like how many hours?
Okay. So I remember exactly when I started, because content for me, so I don't want to like really lean on this, but I've had problems with focusing all my life. I have diagnosed ADHD, right? So content eventually started to get stale, and I would be like, usually the crosstalk path, or like the path in general, is level 1, 2, 3. And I would always use it as like leverage, be like, oh, well, as long as I do my hours, even if I'm bored, I'll hit that, right? It started to get stale enough to where the content was like, I need something new. And Pablo literally always in his little thing says, Crosstalk is still the best, or Crosstalk is really good. It'll still serve you well. I was like, okay, I might as well do it. And I decided to kind of not even dip my toe again. I just dove into it and went all over Hello Talk for like, I'd say 2 good weeks. 2 good weeks, and then I went on Reddit. And then out of just pure laziness, it's way easier for me, honestly, because like I said, it's somebody speaking directly to you. So the dopamine also is like there's a connection, right? You're connecting with someone instead of just watching a video. So it's more engaging. It's way more engaging for me. And so instead of, it was like if I make a 2-hour call with a friend and be like, hey, let's talk at this time, I can't skip it because there's someone else. Exactly. Having to keep me in check. So, yeah.
So apart from just being more engaging, it helps you be more disciplined as well.
It disciplined me a lot more too.
Yeah. And that's definitely something super important when learning a language is discipline, because you are definitely going to lose motivation at some point in your journey.
That's something I remember reading about in Pablo's. He said like eventually when you hit fluency, it doesn't feel like this pizzazz, I did it anymore, because you're so used to it. You're like, why didn't I ever know this? And I definitely felt that in pretty early hours.
Okay. And you mentioned looking for partners on Hello Talk and Reddit. What specifically were you looking in a potential Crosstalk partner?
Okay. So at first it was broad. It was like, I'll talk to anyone just to get me started. And then when I get a good enough understanding of people that I can like actually maybe make a friend, I'll start like zoning in. But I got lucky with my first partner. Okay. Someone who liked video games, who liked things like I like. And he was extremely good already, so I got lucky there too. He worked with me really well, and he could very well guess my level because of how good he was at English. So he worked with me really well, and then I found another one who liked games, and then it all just kind of it just started there. Like got the ball rolling so hard, because right when I got good enough, I could really push ahead, and they were just your buddy at that point, right? So,
exactly. Yeah. And so what kind of activities did you guys do when you were first starting Crosstalk? Because I know now that you guys just play video games, hang out, talk. But did you start more like kind of the beginner route, drawing pictures and stuff like that? Or did you just dive straight into talks?
I dove pretty hard, but I used video calls because I heard that video calls made it a lot easier to start, at least, because I like hand motions, anything. Your body makes it a lot easier to understand someone, even if you don't really know if it does or not. And I already had 280 hours, so I felt like, okay, I'm deep enough in this now. I can go into a learner podcast. Okay, stuff like ECJ, right? I was fine. Yeah. And I'm not going to lie. My first call, I lied completely. I was like, yeah, me too. And he's like, no, I said I'm going. Like, I'm leaving. Like, I got to go. And I'm like, oh, I feel horrible about that one. But within 2 weeks, I had already adapted. And people had to talk slow, and they obviously couldn't talk like a native. I still had 300 hours, right? But I was comfortable enough to where I actually turned cameras off too, and we just talked.
Gotcha. Yeah. And for those of you wondering what ECJ is, it's a YouTube channel called Español con Juan. And in the Dreaming Spanish community, we tend to just say ECJ because he's so well known.
Yeah, he's a big podcaster too. His podcasts are good.
Yeah, he's an older Spanish gentleman from, older gentleman from Spain. Does a lot of funny skits, follows the comprehensible input method as well. He does do some stuff on like grammar. I personally found his videos on the subjunctive really helpful. I watched those after hitting 1,000 hours of input and starting to talk.
Gives you a good ground, like a foundation to start.
Exactly.
To start speaking, because that's usually when people start.
Yeah. And he teaches it in context, like doing skits and stuff.
He doesn't just give you a rule.
Yeah.
He doesn't just say blank, blank, this is the rule and this is how you use it. He uses it in a conversation, basically.
Yeah. So I always recommend, like, if people are looking to do a little bit of grammar review, his resources are pretty good. Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah. And then I wanted to ask as well, were like the main challenges you faced doing Crosstalk? Because like you said, when you first started, you had no idea what was going on, but was there kind of anything else going on?
Okay, usually, I'm not gonna lie, topics weren't too hard because I was meeting a lot of new people, so I guess if anything was hard in that subject, it got kind of boring, right? Because you get used to this of like, how are you? I'm good. What's your name? What's your name? You know, it feels like a schedule at that point, and it feels like fake. But another thing too, past the mountain part where you see this person finally talking to you and you have to guaranteed understand, and you find out very quickly if you don't, because they go, no, that's not what I meant, and you're like, oh, that didn't feel very good. But past the humbling part, right? I'd say not a whole lot, honestly. I didn't find a whole lot of trouble. Maybe finding more people. Okay. I'd say. Like I said, the first big step in this journey, usually with Crosstalk, is finding people, and most people aren't willing to try. So finding people, and then maintaining like variety in conversations. Yes.
Okay, got it. Yeah, those were definitely some challenges that I faced as well when I was first starting to do Crosstalk. I did a little bit of Crosstalk after hitting about 150 hours, maybe 200. I did it for about 14 hours total, and then I kind of stopped because I was always just like, I'd rather kind of go watch a video and relax. But
I was the opposite. Yeah, I was the opposite.
Yeah, but it definitely helps. Like if you've watched a lot of Dreaming Spanish videos, you can kind of get ideas on what to do. A lot of like you can do like guessing games, stuff like that. Recently, I've started kind of dabbling in Portuguese, and I've had to go back to beginner content. And one thing I've noticed is that I think it would be a good idea to have like a bunch of pictures lined up, and then just go around describing the pictures, creating stories about those pictures, things like that. So you don't really kind of have to come up with things to talk about. You're mostly just describing what's going on. Yeah. And then let's see here. At about how many hours of input did you find that you could understand your Crosstalk partners speaking normally?
Speaking normally, I think it depended on the person, because some of my partners were extremely fast natural talkers, and then some others were like middled out. They were just like an average. So at least for me, I'd say 500 hours is when, and for me, like I was doing a lot of content per day. So I'd say that only took maybe a month or two at most, maybe 3 months. I'm going to say 3 months is like guaranteed. It was very easy in comparison. But there were definitely some people where it took a little bit longer. Yeah.
Okay. And then let's see, what other questions do I have here? In your opinion, what makes someone a good Crosstalk partner?
Okay, I'd say there's a few things, and the first one is their ability to work with you, like patience. Because if you both are new, I think the patience feels mutual at that point, and if they're doing bad and you're doing bad, it doesn't feel as not necessarily embarrassing, but like they're gonna get irritated. Yeah, and be like, come on, you know. But another thing is like just their ability to have a conversation, because that's if there are some people that are just yes and noers is what I call them, and it's like, oh, so do you like doing this? And instead of kind of like jumping in and being a little deeper and being like, oh yeah, I like doing that because of blank, they just say yeah, and you go, you know, we're learning here, right? Yeah. I'm trying to get words out of you. I'm trying to, get context and stuff, and I can't use it when you just say yes. Exactly.
So people that elaborate on things.
Elaborators, right? People who are overall and interested in things you like is another thing, because...
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, if somebody is like really big into, let's say, blank, and you're into something the exact opposite, you don't have a whole lot of common ground, and it makes conversation more like I said, like repetitive. You guys talk about the same stuff.
Gotcha.
You're not really in their life at all.
Yeah, I found personally that this isn't something that I've necessarily experienced when cross-talking with people, but it's something that I like to do, which is whenever I say something that I think might be difficult for a non-native speaker to understand, like using slang or just using vocabulary that's not very common, I like to immediately re-say what I just said, but say it differently. Yeah. Like basically just rewording what I just said. And I've gotten feedback from people saying that they found that very helpful. So if that's something that you guys can remember to do, I'm sure your crosstalk partners will thank you.
Yeah, I'd say just basically logically go into it, understanding that they're trying to learn as much as possible efficiently also from you within one call. So if you're just giving extremely broad terms that are super hard for a non-native to understand, you need to go into it a little bit, and you need to kind of give them that like a little ladder to kind of climb on with you instead of just kind of dropping them out.
Exactly.
And just being like, good luck, hope you understand it, and I hope that context is good enough.
Yeah.
Because you'll notice too if they do it to you, and you'll find yourself wishing like, please stop and explain that sometimes, because you're gonna have to stop them anyways.
Yeah.
If they do this whole sentence and I have to wait till after, it's a lot less natural than if you would just went, oh yeah, I was doing blank, which is blank blank, right? And then they keep going. It's more natural.
Exactly. And then it just slipped my mind. I'll bring it back up if it occurs to me. Yeah. But I guess let's move on to the next question as well. Let's see here. How many hours? Find out. Oh wow, I think that's actually it. Is there anything else that you feel like we missed or that we should mention before we conclude?
I'd say something maybe is, how do I feel like I'd be further or ahead, or like, do I feel like I'm worse than somebody who just didn't use Crosstalk?
Yeah, well, you did mention, I think in the beginning, right, that you felt like you were slightly ahead of the curve.
Yeah, but that could just be person to person. But I really do think
true.
Since it's so tailored to you, it'd basically be like if you're watching comprehensible input, but you could pause the video and ask the person talking, hey, what'd that mean? You know?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what's so useful about it, and why technically, even if you're just getting half the time, you can still count it full, because it is very directly tailored to you.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing that I just thought about too, which, do you think that Crosstalk is still useful for you at these higher levels?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Because I still learn stuff, you know? Like, I feel like at this level, I hear extreme deep explanations of somebody's life, what's going on, especially since they're my good friends now.
Yeah.
Is I'm constantly getting new words now because of the crazy way people explain things, even we do.
Exactly.
Yeah, so, yeah.
And I imagine doing Crosstalk with people, like, as they notice your level advanced, they're going to start using more slang and everyday terms that are more regional. Exactly.
Start a good foundation with it, and it still builds because somebody figures out, oh, he can understand when I use slang now. So I'm gonna be more me, right? So you get that natural part.
Yeah, and I think if any of you guys have like any doubts about this process, like if you completely trust it in comprehensible input and Pablo, right? Just know that he does a lot of Crosstalk as well.
I think it's all he's using for like Mandarin and stuff.
Yeah, he prioritizes it. It's like if the guy that started all this, that inspired you to learn Spanish is doing that,
you can trust it works.
Yeah, it probably works pretty well, right?
If he swears by it, it's a good idea to try it out. But.
Yeah, I've definitely started doing more Crosstalk as well. I started doing it after hitting 1,000 hours, so I was a little bit late on that. But I started doing it for fun, just whenever I had done like my mandatory input for the day, like 90 minutes or whatever videos. I would hop in the Dreaming Spanish Discord or the Mr. Solace Discord, and just hang out in the Crosstalk channels and talk with people as like a little bit of bonus input.
Even if you don't count it, it's just technically, it's more fun. You're just talking to people you probably already know, and it's fun. It just makes it more fun.
Exactly.
And eventually it gets so comfy, you don't really notice that this is weird to other people. Like, I remember when I would be doing Crosstalk in the Dreaming Spanish Discord, and people would join like, why are you guys speaking opposite languages? And I've done it for so long, I don't bat an eye. I don't think about it anymore, but yeah. Yeah,
it's such a foreign concept to some people, which, you know, I understand why. But at the same time, I guess maybe it's because my perspective is a little bit biased, having learned through this method. But every time someone's like, or someone tells me that they don't think that method works, or it just sounds weird, I'm like, but just try it, please. Like,
and it's also like, I'm the living proof, you know?
Yeah.
A lot of people get to see your level, especially if they know what kind of content you're watching. And if you're telling somebody that, hey, this worked, it's the only thing I've really used for a while, and they still tell you no, then I feel like that's just being stubborn at that point, you know?
Yeah, I think it's definitely good to keep an open mind about Crosstalk. If it's not something you've tried before, I highly encourage you to try it. Look on Hello Talk, look in a language learning Discord. It might take a while to find a couple partners because it's not a very common idea. That's why we're doing this video, trying to promote it, trying to make it easier for us to find partners and for the people in our communities to find partners. But yeah, it's super efficient, super helpful, super fun, super engaging.
Basically, stay open-minded.
Yeah.
And if you have the time to really search, because I know some people are busy, right? If you've got work and you've got kids and stuff, it might be hard. But if you really can dedicate 1 or 2 weeks, and you maybe get a little bit of luck in it too, you could find some people that'll stay throughout your entire learning journey, and it's a very good feeling, honestly.
Yeah.
Because even when you hit technically your end goal, whatever that might be, you might still have that person in your life, and you guys are at the point where you're just very good friends. You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for example, like we have a mutual Crosstalk partner. We're like both really good friends with him at this point, and we're like even eventually like making plans to meet up with him. So which is kind of crazy, right? Because it's just some random person that we met over the internet.
Yeah, and now before you wouldn't understand anything he said, but now you've built a friendship.
Exactly.
And like I said, he was one of my first partners too. So he saw me at like almost 0. He was actually the guy that I faked with, and I went, yeah. And he's like, no, I gotta go, right?
Yeah.
And he had to say that part in English. It was so bad. I was like, okay, maybe I'm not cut out for this, but build it. It might feel bad at first, and get a schedule around it, and hopefully, very quickly, honestly, you're gonna adapt quick, because if you have some hours under your belt, definitely.
Yeah, and it's super satisfying to see like not only your growth, but their growth as well. Yeah. So if you guys are interested in doing Crosstalk, which I really hope you guys are, I will be leaving some resources in the description for you guys. There's a blog post from Dreaming Spanish that goes kind of in depth about how to do Crosstalk. Hopefully, like we mentioned most of everything. I mean, it's kind of straightforward, but there might be certain things that we forgot to mention. And I'll also be leaving the link to some like printout sheets, or some sheets that you can print out, basically like maps, calendars, stuff like that, to really help facilitate this process, especially in the beginning. Yeah.
It can be difficult, but it's very worth it, in my opinion.
So, any last words?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. I hope you found this interview incredibly useful, and I'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Ciao.
Ciao, ciao.